Well, I got carried away last month when it comes to claim sales once again. I seem to be doing that a lot. But anyways, on today's Rebuilding the Game Wall, my recent video games pickup series for the month of February, I got carried away once again. I got too many games and I kind of want to condense it down a little bit, so we're going to start off and go through some of them quickly, and then we'll get to the cartridges because we picked up a lot of cartridge claims, and cartridge claims just hit differently. Anyways, welcome back to the C's Arcade.
Get ready.
So we're going to get through these real fast, and you'll see the total down below. Anyway, starting off with Hiffy Gold, somebody I followed recently on Instagram. Definitely check him out. Picked up all of this for a total of around $55. Next up, we have J706_gaming, who I've gotten claims from in the past before, and of course he always has some banging deals that you just have to scoop up. So here are the following games that I picked up from him. And all of this came out to a grand total of around only $27. And last but not least, of course, my boy Keisha Boy Games, once again coming through with some epic claims, and I picked up these from him. These all came out to a grand total of around $30. If you would like to see these in more detail, I made YouTube shorts regarding them. If you haven't checked out my recent video on video game hunting at the video game store in Wilkes-Barre, PA, with my boy Super Mario Zilla, we did a little collab. We went to go pick up some Nintendo nostalgia. I picked up a Nintendo Entertainment System. This was the very first console that I ever played growing up as a little child. Anyways, I'm so happy to finally have this in my collection once again to reconnect with the console that started it all. And if you haven't checked out that video, definitely check it out. It's popping up in the top left hand corner of your screen right now, and it will pop up in the end card as well. This one I didn't want to put it into a short because, well, it's only one game I've claimed from Professor Raichu. This is Midway Arcade Treasures Volume 1. This is the alternate cover that was made to be consistent with the second and third release of the Midway Arcade Treasures. This was kind of more of an uncommon cover variant as far as I'm concerned. I paid $25 for this one, and I only got it really for, Rampage and also another game called Bubbles. My wife would not stop talking about this game that she played when she was younger called Bubbles. So I picked it up mainly for her so she could get reconnected with that game, and she had a hell of a time. So I'm glad to get that one. It's only $25 for this Midway Arcade Treasures Volume 1. Now let's move on to the cartridge claims. How are we all doing, by the way? First off, I ended up claiming from Two Bros Claims. I left my copy in there. This is the N64 transfer pack. If you've played Pokemon Stadium, or connected Pokemon Golf, Mario Golf or Mario Tennis on the Nintendo 64 with the Game Boy Color versions, you kind of wanted one of these, you kind of needed one of these. This was mainly for Pokemon Stadium though, and I went in there, cleaned it up a bit, and got it fixed up real nice. It worked just fine before, but now it really works, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, I'm glad to finally get the Nintendo 64 transfer pack. I only paid $8 for that. And I also picked up a game that I never really heard of up until recently called Blast Corps for the Nintendo 64. This game is actually made by Rare, and it was one of the earlier Nintendo 64 titles, and this game is actually really fun. Really underrated if you ask me. Personally, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this game, but you're basically just taking a vehicle and clearing out the way for this transport carrying some nuclear bombs or something, and if you touch it or if it touches a building, and you didn't get there in time to clear those buildings out, it will explode. A real simple premise, and it's actually really fun. If you haven't played Blast Corps, I highly suggest you definitely check it out. It's one of the more cheaper ones to pick up. I paid only $10 for this one. So thanks again to Two Bros Claims for those. Next up, we have some more Nintendo 64 claims, this time from Retro Dragon 007. Right on. So what do we get from Retro Dragon 007? Well, first off, we picked up Star Wars Episode 1 Racer for only $8. A lot of people are big fans of this game. I only played a short portion of it back when my brother-in-law first got it for the Nintendo 64. He was a big fan of this game. He showed it to me, I played it, I was crashing into walls. I couldn't quite grasp the controls at the time because I was a noob. And yeah, this game definitely takes some practice, but it is so fun. You definitely need to check this out if you're a Star Wars fan. It's also available on the Dreamcast as well. If you want to get it on that, it's a better version of it. But the Nintendo 64 version is also really solid. And it also made an HD remaster of this as well. So I paid $8 for that one. Next up, we have Turok 2 Seeds of Evil. Huge fan of the Turok series, especially the Nintendo 64 titles. I still remember the day my brother and my other brother-in-law brought this one over after he got it from Blockbuster. We were just laughing our asses off at the intro with the iguana from the Iguana Entertainment logo, and how he was just going ballistic, shooting back at everybody who was trying to get him. It was hilarious, and his teeth, that smile, just drew us crazy. We loved this game. And it was quite creepy as well, seeing how gory it was at the time, but I really enjoyed it for what it was, and it's still a classic to this day. I much prefer to play the HD remaster of it on my Switch, but I'm happy to actually get it, and it even came with the spine label as well, so this was only $13. Speaking of Turok, we're not done. We also have Turok Rage Wars. Now this one was a multiplayer focused Turok game. There was actually two versions of it. This one had a game-breaking bug or glitch in it where you really couldn't progress through the single player campaign, which is barely a campaign as it is. You're basically just taking on bots. But regardless, this one is a fan favorite amongst the Turok community, and if you've played this one growing up, let me know in the comment section below who your favorite character was. Of course, me, I chose my girl Adon. I loved Adon, and yeah, even comes with the spine label as well. This one was only $8, so I'm happy to add this one to my collection as well. And $13 for this one. This is an absolute classic. If you own a Nintendo 64, or if you played it back growing up, you had to have played this game at some point in your life. If you haven't, and you have the expansion pass for the Nintendo Switch Online, you have to play it on there at least. Pilot Wings 64. As you probably hear in the background in a lot of my videos, I use the hand glider theme a lot for my videos, and this is just one of those games where it's really challenging, but it's just so much fun. My father used to rent this one for us. We never actually owned it, but now things have changed. I got to own Pilot Wings on the Nintendo 64 finally after all these years. I'm a little late to the party, but it's great to actually have it physically. Thank you again, Retro Dragon 007, for those claims. Next up, we have more cartridge claims. This is from Rare Deal Gamings on Instagram. Give them a follow as well. Give everybody in this video a follow if you're into claiming games and buying them off Instagram. Trust me, it sure as hell beats eBay 9 times out of 10. So what do we got from Rare Deal Gaming? The combined cost of all three of these was around $27. I forget their individual amounts because this post has since been deleted. Here we have Ninja Gaiden 2 on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I never actually played the original Ninja Gaiden games. The only time I got into them was on the Xbox and the Sigma re-releases on the PS3. But I heard this one was pretty good. Ninja Gaiden 2, The Dark Sword of Chaos. Next up, we have Super R-Type. This was the one that had the really bad slowdown. From what I've played, the slowdown is pretty rough, but at the time, you know, we didn't really care too much about frame rate. I don't think any of us really cared or knew what the hell was going on. We just kind of played it as we, you know, we were younger, we didn't really care too much. From what I played though, it's a pretty challenging game, and I actually really enjoy it. The slowdown actually kind of helps in certain aspects as well, so that's always good. When they're cleaned it up, everything is working perfectly, and of course I love the R-Type games, so I'm trying to get more of them as they come along. And last but not least, for Rare Deal Gaming, we have Star Fox on the Super Nintendo. I was never really big into Star Fox. You'd think, oddly enough, somebody like me who loves Star Wars and loves those type of shooters in space, that I would be a Star Fox fan. The first Star Fox game I actually played and owned was Star Fox Adventures, so my views on the series is pretty warped, but I've been picking a lot of them up recently, so yeah, Star Fox on the Super Nintendo. Right on! We got more claims to talk about, so let's get to it! Next up we have some claims from Cali Claims, and I actually did a couple of trades with Cali this time, and yeah, so I traded Cali Dusk, a limited run games release for the Nintendo Switch that I wasn't too big of a fan of. I also had a sealed copy of Hot Wheels Unleashed for the Nintendo Switch as well. I also traded them a new Super Mario Bros. Wii game case with the manual. So it has the inserts, the manual, and the game case. No game, but they had a loose disc, I'm sure, and they were willing to take it. So with those trades, I managed to get the following 3 games even out. So those games were Star Wars Battle for Naboo Episode 1. Star Wars Episode 1 Battle for Naboo. This was made by Factor 5. This was their second, I believe. This was their follow-up basically to Rogue Squadron on the Nintendo 64. It wasn't the sequel. That was Rogue Leader on the GameCube. This was just a follow-up to coincide with the movie's release, and I never actually played it. I just got to play it recently, and I was really enjoying my time with it. However, I do want to get the Nintendo 64 expansion pack so that I can get the better resolution out of this game. So yeah, Star Wars Battle for Naboo. Next up we have Hexen on the Nintendo 64. This was another, I believe this was this it or I don't remember. I don't know, it's like a Doom kind of game. That's my best way I could describe it. I'm not really too familiar with it until now, since I've gotten around to actually playing it. It plays a lot like the original Doom, so it's got a lot of sprite-based first-person action, and this one's actually really good from what I've played. I like the creature designs. I like how it's kind of like you got a mage, and you could choose your different class, and there's some melee combat in there as well, and it's actually pretty interesting from what I've played. And I've been trying to pick up a lot of these N64 versions of first-person shooters because, I don't know, that's just something I want to do. I want to build up my Nintendo 64 collection this year, so that's what I'm aiming for. And we also picked up The Legend of Zelda on the Nintendo Entertainment System, the original Zelda game. I never actually owned it, and now I finally do, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, just look at that cartridge. Look at it. It's so beautiful. The Zelda games, they always have like beautiful limited editions or just beautiful cartridges in general. And this was awesome to actually get. The battery save still works on it too. So I want to get into this and actually complete it on the Nintendo Entertainment System now that I actually have one. And last but not least, we also picked up Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards. This is one I always wanted to own as well, that I never really got around to play, and I believe I played it on the Virtual Console. But yeah, Kirby on the Nintendo 64 is a solid release, and not a lot of people talk about this one. It'd be cool if it did get a remake at some point, but it is what it is. I'm glad to actually pick this one up. I paid $35 for this one. So, pretty pricey this one, but a lot of Nintendo 64 games, especially the first party ones, are getting up there in price. So if you're looking to collect for the Nintendo 64, I highly suggest you do that sooner than later. So thank you again, Cali Claims, for those. Okay, I promise you, we're getting towards the end of this video. Next claims lot comes from Retro Gaming Zone. This guy's amazing. This was the guy that I originally claimed from when I first started claiming games on Instagram. That was the Sega Saturn video, the very first Sega Saturn that I ever actually owned. I got it from Retro Gaming Zone. And I'm still claiming from Retro Gaming Zone to this day. So what did we get from Retro Gaming Zone? We got 4 Super Nintendo titles. It's Ultraman! On the Super Nintendo, yeah, this is Ultraman. It's a fighting game, 2D fighting game. It's not great, trust me, I played it before. I didn't really care for the gameplay, but it's an Ultraman game, and by obligation I kind of have to own it, so yep, picked it up for only $9.50. Next up we have the original Pilot Wings on the Super Nintendo. This one is not as well known as Pilot Wings on the 64, but it's still a classic, and a lot of people hold this one in high regard because of the way it did its graphics. It used the Mode 7 as well, which was very interesting at the time, and it still looks really good to this day, so I'm happy to actually have the original Pilot Wings in my collection too, and it was only $9.50. Next up we have Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy Kong's Quest on the Super Nintendo, and this is another one that is an absolute classic. I'm trying to get all the Donkey Kong Country games on the Super Nintendo. I've got one, now I've got 2. Paid $20 for this one, and I need to pick up the third one at some point in time. I hope to do that this year. Definitely will get to this year. It pops up a lot in a lot of claim sales, so it's just a matter of time till I get that one. Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest. I got you there. You thought I said it wrong. I bet you already put it in the comment section. Just leave it there. Just leave it there. You want to correct me. It's Diddy's Conquest, not Diddy Kong's Quest. I know the difference. I'm an old bastard at this point. I think I know better. And last but not least, we have a game that I only experienced on the Game Boy Advance in Super Mario Advance 3, Yoshi's Island. This was a game that was completely passed me by during the Super Nintendo era. This is a game that I know I would have absolutely loved and adored at the time that it came out. I just didn't know it existed. My cousins didn't own it. We never played it. We had Super Mario World, we had Mario All-Stars, but I had no idea that this game was a thing until Super Mario Advance 3. And I loved Yoshi's Island on the Game Boy Advance. So I had to pick up Yoshi's Island on the Super Nintendo finally. This one was a heavy hitter. This was $35 for the cartridge, but I'm so ecstatic that I have the original. My mom is a big fan of that one, by the way. She absolutely loves when Baby Mario starts crying. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a mother thing, but she absolutely adores it when he gets knocked off Yoshi and starts floating around and crying. It drives her crazy. I love you, Mom. We gotta play that one when you come over next time. And last but not least, we have the Game Supplier 1994, who I've claimed many a game from in the past at Rebuilding the Game Wall episodes. And today is no different. We have a stack of cartridges from this guy. But first off, before we get to them, I did a trade for these. Well, I traded Doom 2016 on the Nintendo Switch. I figured I wasn't really going to enjoy it in handheld mode because of the Joy-Cons. It's not a game that I would want to play handheld anyways. Why did I buy it to begin with? I don't know. Kind of just got into a Switch hype. So I traded it to him, and I also traded him an extra copy of Persona 4 Golden on the Vita, and I basically got $50 from those 2 trades. Not bad if I do say so myself. He had a claim sale going on, and a lot of NES games came along with it, so I picked up some of them because I just couldn't resist. I just got a Nintendo Entertainment System. I want to go back to the time that was a lot more simpler, where you could just put in a game and enjoy it. So what did I get from the Game Supplier 1994? Well, I got Defender 2, $6 for this one. The original Blaster Master on the Nintendo Entertainment System is a classic, and a lot of people love this game. Paid only $9 for this one. The original Metal Gear. I completely forgot that this game originally came out on the Nintendo Entertainment System. So it's cool to actually own the original. And it's a very old school style stealth game. But it checks out. $12 for that one. Here we have Rad Racer. I remember seeing a video on this one, and I really enjoyed what gameplay that I saw From what I play, this one's pretty challenging, but it's really fun. Old school racing game. $6 for that one. Next up we have Captain Skyhawk. This is a very interesting, like, scrolling shooter game. Like, you have to be careful of the terrain and stuff. Not just the enemies shooting at you, but there's like an upgrade system as well. I just wish I had like a password save system. But from what I played so far, it's actually really interesting, really fun. So Captain Skyhawk was only $4. And last for the Nintendo Entertainment System games, we have Excitebike. Excitebike was only $8, but this is another classic. My sister recalls playing this back on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I don't remember ever playing this one when I was younger. I do remember playing it though in Animal Crossing on the GameCube. So I know it's a classic at this point in time, so I had to pick up the original Excitebike for only $8. So yeah, those two trades paid for all those NES games. And we're not done. There were 3 other Nintendo 64 games he also had on sale in a previous sale that I had to pick up. And that was Tonic Trouble, which was a precursor to Rayman 2. This was kind of like them testing the engine and checking out what they could do in 3D. Tonic Trouble was $23. Next up, Star Fox 64. This is a classic. If you've played the Nintendo 64, you had to have played Star Fox 64. I remember seeing this at Blockbuster many a times, but never actually pulling the trigger and wanting to rent it. I don't know why. If I did, I probably would have been a much bigger Star Fox fan than I actually am. But here we are in 2023, and I'm finally getting around to playing Star Fox 64. I did play the remake on the 3DS and finished it there, but I didn't complete it 100%. I just went through one path, and that was it. I was like, okay, it's good. Last but not least, to end off today's episode, we have Yoshi's Story on the Nintendo 64. This one was only $24. A lot of people do not like this game, especially when compared to Yoshi's Island. And listen, I get it. It's nowhere near as good as Yoshi's Island, but you gotta understand something here. My experience with the Yoshi games was different. Played Super Mario World, and then I played Yoshi's Story on the Nintendo 64. Me and my cousins had an absolute blast playing this game when it came on N64. They owned it. I never got around to owning it. I think we rented it and maybe borrowed it, but we never actually got around to owning it. And I'm finally holding my own copy here of Yoshi's Story. Like I said, I didn't experience Yoshi's Island until the Game Boy Advance. So my opinion on this game is that I absolutely adore this game. While a lot of people said, it's not as good as Yoshi's Island, I don't like it as much. See how everybody's experiences in gaming is different? So if you have any experience like that with a certain game where a lot of people were not really a big fan of because they experienced it after a certain game, let me know in the comment section below. I would like to hear your stories. Anyways, thanks for watching today's episode of Rebuilding the Game Wall, everybody. Yes, I went overboard, and I already have a stack lined up for March already because we are in March, and I need to calm down. But video gaming is my passion. Collecting games that I know I'm going to enjoy for years, or games that I enjoyed in the past and never got around to owning, or owned at one point and traded away for whatever reason. It's happened to all of us. I'm happy to finally have a lot of these back in my collection. Anyway, thank you again everyone for taking the time and joining me on this journey of rebuilding the game wall, which has already been rebuilt. Thank you all for tuning in. I really do appreciate all of you for sharing your time with me. And anyways, without further ado, good game and good night.